Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Rose.
And I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
Welcome to our reaction and review for The White Lotus Season 3, Episode 2. We've now been in Thailand for a little while. We have seen a lot of characters. We have another appearance from Greg, or I guess, shall we say, Gary at this point?
Yeah, what is going on there?
This episode, I think, was really great in continuing the narratives. And if you've watched The White Lotus before, you kind of know that Mike White kind of takes you a little bit on a slow build and gives you the characters, allows you to get to know them. It's sort of like he's put some of that rice that Rick was complaining about in the premiere. He's put it in the rice cooker and we're just waiting for it to get done.
I'll take all that gluten-free rice. I have celiac, so you can bring it on over here. You know, Rick, stop being a complainer. Some of us don't get those choices when we go to restaurants.
I think what is really fun about this season for where we are right now is we have a handful of different mysteries. Obviously, there's the big question mark of who is behind what's going on in the opening minutes of the premiere. But then beyond that, who is the target of whatever's going on in those opening minutes? But then you also have at this point, what is happening with Tim? How much trouble is he in? And Rick. We know you are after this gym person, but why are you after this gym person?
Also, Mike White, listen, I need to talk to you for just a
Okay,
second
all
here.
right.
Please do not kill off Belinda. You are going to need to go straight to jail if you decide that you are going to do this. I feel like this is the message from the collective everyone. Nobody wants to see this happen. So please don't do it.
You've already killed off one popular character in Tanya.
Oh,
That is enough.
it's enough.
We all need to just be at this wellness retreat for the rest of this season. And I say this knowing that this is not going to be a wellness retreat for pretty much anybody there.
It is not.
All right, well, we have so much to get into here, though. Before we do, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more coverage of The White Lotus as we bring together theories, ideas of what is going on. And this is just an amazing time for shows that have all these sort of theories. Because, I mean, we're in the midst of Yellow Jackets. We're in the midst of Severance.
Yes.
We are having a good old time. And also, help us get to 70,000 subscribers. It's Jess's 50th birthday coming up here. Like, what a better way to celebrate.
It would be such a great gift to be able to hit that milestone. We've been doing this a really long time. So hit that subscribe button. Also, follow us over on our Patreon. If you join our Patreon, it's a great place to be able to get exclusive content from us.
Yes.
Right now, we are covering The Pit, which is airing over on Max, and we are covering Prime Target, which is on Apple TV Plus right now.
Yes.
And you can get our weekly reviews over there. So thank you so much to everyone who has joined.
Thank you guys so much. And now let's start with my guy, Walton Goggins. If you have been...
Oh, also my guy.
Okay, you can, we can share him.
Okay, we'll share.
Our guy, Walton Goggins, who...
We just love him.
We do. We each have our own special relationship. I know you... Was it Justified? Was that your...
Justified.
Yeah.
Justified was the first time I ever saw him. That show is great in general, but he really made that show for me. He played such an unlikable guy. I know he's playing a kind of unlikable guy here, but there's a lot more depth to him here where he's not just completely unlikable like what's going on with Boyd Crowder over on Justified. Here there's something that's a lot more deep that's going on, emptiness, a nothingness, if you will.
What's so interesting about watching him, and I sort of attribute this to Walton himself, because if you've seen any interview he has ever given, I watched his Architectural Digest tour of his home because I love him so much, but he is the most charming person I think who has ever lived. He is playing this season the least charming person who I think has ever lived. Like, even Boyd, he's a terrible person, but he could convince me to do just about anything.
Yeah, he's got charm.
This guy is so down in the dumps. He really seems to be hating Thailand, hating everybody. The only thing that he seems to care about at all is tracking down this gym figure. And why is that? So I know after the premiere, one of the prevailing theories that was out there is, okay, well, this guy must be Rick's father, and that we are seeing this sort of big, elaborate personal story where he's trying to get some element of his past. It reminds me oddly of the Tom Hanks movie The Terminal, which me and only me seem to enjoy. But here in this episode, we get this little backstory. that supposedly, and who knows if this is
If
true,
it's true.
yeah, he could be telling this woman who's doing his, anger class anything at this point.
Yeah, listen, he doesn't know her. I
Yeah.
mean, some of it could be true, some of it could not be true. Maybe he's telling her that he was told that
Yeah.
his father was murdered and he found out later that it was a lie. And that's where I'm landing on it. I do think that this is his father, but that the rest of it is as truth as he knows it, as
Mhm.
been told to him.
Here's where I'm landing on it. It's just that I kind of
Tinfoil hat.
Oh yeah. Okay, let me get this. This is either going to be great or this is going to be a disaster. So
Oh, I think it's gonna be great.
what if this mysterious Jim guy actually killed his father, because we
Mm.
learned that his father was apparently killed. He never had a chance to know him. He lost
Yep.
his mother when he was 10 years old. Once again, if all of this is true, asterisk, I know how much you, perhaps more than any person alive, loves a story of revenge. And this could be Walton Goggins. I'm sorry, I will say Rick at some point. I'm just Walton Goggins being like, you never allowed me to have the father I could have had. You destroyed my entire life. I am coming for you. I am so desperate to do this that I am going to completely disregard this beautiful vacation. I'm going to pay almost no attention to this woman that I am with, and I am just going to be transfixed on this.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it with the way that he was opening up, if everything he is saying is true,
Yeah.
that there is this complete emptiness inside of him, and that because of the things that have happened in his life, that he is now this man that is just a shell of himself. He's got this beautiful woman in this beautiful country that he is unable to enjoy or put his heart into, put emotion into, because he is broken from what happened to his mom at 10 and then his father being murdered that he never got to meet. And because of these events, he's now this man that seemingly is like unable to have emotional connection, love, which is something that everyone strives for. He's got this woman who's extremely positive, seems to really care about him, really wants to help him get through what's he's going through, but nothing is working for him. It doesn't matter how much money he has, the beauty of the place he's at, the support that he has of the woman that he's with. Nothing is helping him. And he may blame the person who took away his father, thinking like, okay, maybe I could have gotten past what happened to my mom if my father wasn't taken.
The only other crazy idea that I have, and I say crazy because I literally just thought of this,
Mhm,
is
mhm,
that what if
mhm.
he was hired to take this guy out? That's the reason that he's here. That's the reason he's being so shady with Chelsea. He apparently can't
Yeah.
go to Australia. Maybe he did something in Australia that's keeping him from being able to go back there.
I really hope that that's not what the case
Yeah, I
is,
hope not
because it
either.
feels like they dropped it so early on in that first episode that
Yeah.
he can't go back to Australia. It's like, okay, is it that he can't go back because he's not allowed to
Yeah.
go back, or he can't go back because something there in his lifetime broke him apart and he just can't go back, sort of thing. I just feel like setting that up of the her being like, oh, well, were you arrested or something like that? If it just ends up that he's just a killer for hire, it's just gonna be like, okay, it's a little you revealed it a bit too early, and Mike White doesn't really kind of roll that way.
No, I think the end reveal with Rick is going to be much more satisfying. I want to believe, and I'm not just saying this because I'm biased, even though I am. I want to believe that we are actually going to see a more wholesome story evolve over time with Rick, because I know Mike White is inherently pretty cynical in a lot of his shows. Like, this is a very cynical show.
Yep.
And I'll admit it, one of the big reasons I like it is I like to make fun of rich people doing stupid things. It's one of the reasons I love Succession. But
Yes.
I think that there might be something more to him we're going to figure out over time. I mean, ironically, the mystery to me that's as interesting as anything that's going on with this guy who may or may not be his father is, what's the deal? I sound like Seinfeld. What's the deal when it comes to Rick and Chelsea in this relationship, which is so weird?
Yeah, I mean, he is probably there because she is kind, she is really positive, she is beautiful, she seems to really love him, and he wants it seems like he also really wants to just make an emotional connection. If he's going to make one with anyone, here's someone who's smart and kind and beautiful and loves him, right? So on paper, she's everything and she should be able to reach him, but isn't able to. On her side, I'm more like, why is she there?
Mhm.
If it was Walton Goggins, we all know why everyone is lining up
Yes,
down the block.
yes.
But if it's Rick, it's like, is it his money question mark? I mean, she seemed happy to be there, but because she was with him.
Yeah.
She's also very positive with him that even though he's, Mr. Grumpy Pants all the time, she's trying to find ways to turn it around, make him smile, anything she can. He's being really rude to her, calling her an idiot, a
Yeah.
lot of other names, not being that nice to her. Why is she putting up with it if it's not for the money? The companionship doesn't seem to be there as well as it could be. I'm just not sure. Does she want to fix him?
She seems like somebody, and we've seen her offer up a lot of excuses, whether it be to her new model friend, whether it be to Greg
Model friend.
slash Gary. Like he
Gary.
just continues to sort of be like, oh, he's grumpy. Oh, he has this. And I don't know if these are just things she's trying to tell herself so that she feels okay with it, or that maybe legitimately he is acting weird here versus the day-to-day life. I mean, all I know is just because Walton has this sort of magnetism about him. Like, this is a story that I'm probably more fundamentally interested in than almost any other this season, but it's also the one I'm having probably the hardest time cracking.
Yeah, I'm totally invested in this story because Walton. I
Yeah.
mean, he's just so good and the story is really good. But the story that I'm finding to be the most relatable this season is the one with Lori and Kate and Jacqueline. I mean,
Yeah.
that's my aunt's name, so maybe that's also why. But also, this feels like something that everyone has gone through
Mhm.
where you have friends that you used to be really close with or that you grew up with or you've been friends for 20 years and at the time that you guys met you guys were all on the same page. You had a lot of the same interests, you might be at the same stages of life and sort of on the same paths, and then 20 years passes and all of a sudden, one is divorced, one is newly married, one is, married for 20 years and unhappy, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Everybody's at different stages of life. And while you still, care about your friend, you're just not on the same roads anymore. And it's such a difficult, weird, awkward place to be because there's no real reason for that friendship to be breaking up because you still like that person,
Yeah.
but there's no real reason for it to continue on because you guys have nothing in common anymore. You're not connecting anymore. You're not getting anything out of that relationship anymore that's really positive for each other. And instead, it's kind of two ships passing in the night where you guys just don't really understand each other anymore because you're on different paths and you've got different things going on. And then it brings it together here where there's also a little bit of cattiness to be able to kind of bring yourself up in the bad situation you're in by sort of being like, yeah, we really care about our friend, but also, did you see this? And I think that a lot of people have really been in that position. I mean, I've been in that position. Raise your hands in the comments. Anybody be in that position where you've been friends with someone a long time and it just, yeah, you're just on different roads and
Yeah.
you're like, oh man, it like hurts my heart that our relationship is like breaking apart, but we're here.
This story, I think, is going to go to an emotional, pretty interesting place. There's going to be some sort of blow up. Do I think it's tied to the start of the season? No, but not everything needs to be. I just think
No.
it's pretty funny that this whole season is about these people being at this ocean, and these three are just swimming in their own passive aggressive water at the moment,
Mhm.
where they're needling each other, they're trying to suss each other out, they're trying to find ways to sort of feel like, okay, I'm in a good place, you're not in a good place, I'm doing all right, maybe you're
Mhm.
not doing all right. And it's just, they're so, I think, transfixed on all of this, they're not really gonna have the best time. Though I will say, probably my favorite laugh out loud moment of the episode is Laurie, who is completely blasted, just banging on the window. It looked almost like she just threw her whole body at it. This is just a really fun role. There's a list of people who I think
Yes.
are probably having a lot of fun on this show. Like Lori's got to be one of them. I mean, this actress was on The Leftovers playing the saddest character known to mankind. So I'm like, okay, you have fun. Parker Posey is having the best time I think anyone has ever.
Yes.
I want to just talk about how we all should be friends. Don't I had a friend who once spat on my face and then pulled it back. What are you saying?
No, this story she's telling is ridiculous. And then it's like, Kate's like, oh, well, we met at this shower. Don't you remember me? No, I don't remember you. Goodbye. Like, why do I care? Oh, we met at a baby shower 10 years ago. Oh, we need to talk now. I'm just like, okay, you're going to be rude to her who's trying to be nice to you, but the person who tries to spit on you is
Yeah.
okay.
I'm going to introduce a new competition here. I want to know you guys' thoughts in the comments on this too, and also yours. Who is the worst person on the White Lotus season 3 at present? Here are some of the top contenders. We can't overlook Parker Posey, who I just think is completely out of her mind and I think is way ruder than she's even probably coming across at this point. Obviously, her husband Tim, who is engaged in really terrible, awful activity.
Also, her son Saxon.
Yes, who is clearly rising up the rankings more and more with every passing minute.
Oh my goodness, he's really something else. But I mean, he's got to be having a lot of fun with this role. This role is something else. He's also really passive aggressive.
Yeah.
With his siblings. I mean, everybody in this family seems to be like they have a religious background, but everybody's doing these terrible things or hiding something about themselves. It's like the most dysfunctional family, and his character is just off the rails. Like everything that's bad for him is happening to him.
He has no impulse control.
No, he doesn't.
One thing I do really like about what the show is doing with him so far, it's Patrick Schwarzenegger character, is just that he's not really getting anywhere with some of the women, and every time he tries, he just repeatedly gets shut down. That's very funny, but it is time to put on the ultimate tinfoil hat.
Oh,
I am
right.
about to explain in episode 2 what is going on at the start of this season. So somebody is going to die.
Yes.
It is going to be Saxon. And how it is going to happen is that we know what's going on here with his dad, Tim, and there's all this shady business that he's been doing. We have found out that his partner of sorts has had his door busted down. He's in some really, really deep stuff. And we've seen at this point, Tim is trying his best to just smooth everything over, make sure, oh, I'm implicated. What's going on here? I think ultimately what's going to happen is so much of this season is about belief and seemingly religion and spirituality.
Yes.
I think at the end of the day, no matter how Tim is trying to cover this up, his big belief is himself. I think he thinks that he can take care of any problem. He can sweep every problem under the rug. And I think he's going to think he can do that here as well. But eventually he is going to screw things up to such a level that more and more people are directly going to come after him. And because of his own actions and because of his own false belief, he's going to lose his son in the process, because his son's probably going to do something very, very stupid when all of these people show up. And it just feels like after the first season took out somebody, and, you know, I love Murray Bartlett, but the way he died was so ridiculous. But that was such a ridiculous death.
Yes.
Season 2 was a character who was loved.
Yes.
It makes sense for this to be a character who was hated, and a character who may not have necessarily done anything directly to cause those people to be there, but ends up being the end result of his father's own actions or mistakes.
This episode definitely raised the bar on me disliking him. Like in the first episode, I was like, okay, he's obviously sort of in this weird rebellious thing where, you know, he's got a very controlling family. And we saw little bits of him also trying to control his brother, his sister, try to keep them apart, kind of. And this episode, more so, though, really showed a lot of his true colors, where I was just like, okay, you are easily the worst in this family, and this family has Tim.
Yeah, this family is really, really bad. I mean, the only two that seems like there might be some semblance of hope at this point is you have Piper, the daughter, and Locke, the son, who is just in a really weird position in general.
Yeah, I think they're all like we said, this is a bit about spirituality this
Yes.
season, and this is a family that is sort of like based on religion. And you have this
Mhm.
daughter that's here that's looking at Buddhism on the sly for her thesis, where she
Yeah.
didn't call anybody ahead of time and just booked them all to go down there. And she tried to go to the temple, but she couldn't even bring herself to go in yet because I think she's knows that once she steps over, she has stepped over into this different spirituality. Her family won't agree. You have Locke, who I think is dealing with the fact that he's interested in men. I know I've seen a lot online of people that are kind of like, oh, he's interested in his brother. I don't think that's actually what it is. I think he's interested in men. He's somebody who's inexperienced. This is where he's starting to learn that that is what he's interested in. And in this family, that might not be accepted. It feels like his brother would definitely tease him about that till the end of time. You
Yeah.
got the brother who's obviously rebellious, who's indulging in a lot of things he shouldn't be. His
Mhm.
mother also indulging in pills and things
Yes.
that maybe she shouldn't be as much as she is. And then we know what's going on with the father as well. So this is the most dysfunctional family, but the way that this episode ended, where Tim is all the way down the hole with everything that is hitting the fan, him
Yeah.
looking over and seeing his family kind of like, oh, hey, let's all go inside. Ah, ha, ha, ha. It's just like, oh no, this whole family is having some issues.
They're gonna be torn apart, I think, at the seams. And I think you're right about what's really going on here with this dynamic. And I think a lot of people on the internet, because this is HBO, because this is the
Right,
network
right.
that brought us Game of Thrones, I think they all kind of jumped to this big conclusion. And I don't think that's the conclusion we're going to here.
No, they're just showing us Patrick's butt. Like it's just the way that it
Yeah.
is. It's not I don't think it's going where some of the internet has said so. I think it's Locke is really struggling with himself and that he's interested in men and there's no outlet for him to be able to figure out if that's true or not. I think that's where we are.
Let's focus in again on that final sequence where, you mentioned it, there's Tim looking at his family. But while Tim is also on the phone, we see a lot of cutaway shots over to Guy Talk, who is over there running security. Okay, listen, I can see by the smile on your
I
face.
love
I
him.
am
Oh
about
my goodness, don't break my
I am
heart.
about to break your heart. I am about to make you
Oh,
very, very,
see
very
yourself
sad.
out.
I feel like Guy Talk may be hired to inform on people at this hotel. There's something that's not sitting right. Because think about it this way. If what I suggested earlier about ultimately Saxon being the person who's taken out and all, if all this comes to pass, somebody needs to know obviously where this family is. For starters, there's a chance that Guy Talk heard something here that he can then pass along if he's an informant for X, Y, or Z person. But the other thing that's
He
making
was there while Tim was on the phone.
he was. That's the thing. It's just there's something suspicious about the amount of time we are focusing on him.
Mhm.
And then there's something suspicious about the robbery that happened in this episode where,
It was so
yeah,
weird.
these people somehow managed to get in there and they get out. He gets hurt. Of course he gets hurt. Listen, I watch a lot of heist related content. And the thing is, if you want to make an inside job not look like either an inside job or look like, the security guard is not involved, you hurt the security guard.
Of course, we've seen this in tons of movies,
Yes.
nice movies. We saw it in for Scream. Sorry to ruin the ending of that,
Oh.
where the two killers are like, "Oh, we need to make it look like we were also not part
I
of it. Stab
know.
me in my arm." It's like that's pretty, yeah, typical.
It just feels like his relationship with Mook at this point, like they're the heart of the show. Like they seem to be
Yes.
very sweet. This show, as we have said, it is cynical and I think it is
I
dark.
know.
I think that Guy Talk is involved in something and he might have a good reason. Maybe he's taking
Maybe.
care of somebody. And, one of the things that this show does talk about a lot, especially in season 1, was wealth inequality, where you've got all
Yes.
these uber rich people. None of the people working at this hotel are anywhere near as rich. But this is where, to me, the story that's coming to a head in a really interesting way is our beloved Belinda, who is not somebody who is there with money, but is
Yeah.
finding herself in this interesting position where, yeah, she's kind of there to learn things, but she's also kind of a guest at this resort at the same time. So
Yep.
she's getting the best of both worlds. Everything with her and Greg/Gary is
Craigslist.
very interesting and very, very confusing.
It is really confusing because it feels like Belinda would know who he is. I
Yeah.
feel like she would have recognized him a little more than kind of like, do I know that guy
Yeah.
or do I not know that guy? I also feel like a lot of I used to work in resort.
Okay.
So that was my very first job and I worked in it for a couple of years. Everybody talks. And I
Hmm.
used to work at this lodge, which was a resort, and there was a bunch of resorts that were all in the same area.
Yeah.
If something happened in the resort that was like, down the road, we all knew about it. If there was something that happened in the resort that was like in the next province, I'm from Canada,
Hmm.
we would all know about it. If somebody got murdered or died
Yeah.
in one of the other lodges, we would all be talking about it.
This is the biggest. I don't know if there's a lot of plot holes with the White Lotus, but this is consistently the biggest plot hole that somebody dies in the first hotel.
I feel like Belinda would know about all of them.
Yeah, I think the thing that's really I'm struggling with, but I'm also curious about the most is that does she recognize Greg immediately? I've gone back and forth on this. I kind of think that she does because
Yeah.
if this was just a normal person who is at one of the hotels in like the hotel in Hawaii in the past, like maybe she wouldn't. But Tanya had gotten her hopes up so much that her whole life was going to change.
Yep.
And then comes this guy who takes all this away, who just pulls Tanya away. And there is this, even in, how little we saw of them, like even it was clear from an outsider point of view that, okay, something's wrong here. Something is going on. I think she had to be fully aware of that. I think you're probably right. Everybody does talk. She has to sort of realize that something happened to Tanya, and her wheels are probably turning in her head.
Yeah, I don't think it was a coincidence that it was mentioned that there are a lot of white bald guys there. I think
Yeah.
it was there to kind of make it so that when Belinda looks over and sees him, that she's like, oh, maybe I recognize him. But also, there's 50 other white bald guys
Yeah.
here because that seems to be the thing out here.
I think the big problem is, and we have to sort of all pump the brakes on this story a little bit, because I know if you are like me, I really want justice for Tanya. I want to see Greg taken down 100 notches, but Tanya is also not Tanya. Belinda is just an employee at a hotel in Hawaii. She's in Thailand doing a work trip.
Mhm.
Even if she sees that this is Greg and knows that this is Greg and feels confident that Greg might have done something to Tanya, because we don't even know what happened in the aftermath of Sicily. We don't know
Mhm.
what Tanya's assistant Portia went off and did, or if anybody said anything or whatever.
Mhm.
Who's she gonna tell? Who's gonna believe her or listen to her? She doesn't come from money. She wasn't there. It's a very hard position. I think she's just going to let this sort of stew. Eventually, though, it's going to get to a point where she can't take it anymore. I don't think that she's the sort of person who's just going to sit there and say nothing all season if this guy keeps coming up.
Well, the other thing is that Gary lives there now. He's been there for a year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he would be considered more of a local at this point, and she showed up a couple days ago.
All right. One last very important thing to talk about here. The monkeys. The monkeys
The monkeys
are everywhere. I understand from a climate perspective, environment, there would be monkeys everywhere. Like, I'm acutely aware of this. I'm a geography nerd. They don't have to focus on the monkeys as much as they are.
So much statues, the actual monkeys, even the clothing that they're wearing at the resort have monkeys on them.
Okay. I'm not fully settled on where this is going yet. So stop typing in the comments. I am not saying
Unless you're like, it's the monkeys that did it.
No,
They're wheeling a gun.
I'm not saying the monkeys did it. This is not the episode of Monk where they went around saying the chimpanzee was the killer. I'm not doing that. However, this is a dark comedy.
Mhm.
I do think the monkeys are going to have some sort of role to play.
I think there will be something with them.
Yeah.
There has to be. They focus on them so much.
Yeah, they're going to be involved in some sort of craziness at the end of the season. It's not going to be taking somebody out, but it's going to be something. And I think they're also, there to constantly remind people that they are amidst nature. There's this element of it that's wild, that it's not all together peaceful. And I appreciate that.
I also appreciate the use of the Krungbin. I absolutely love that band so much.
Yeah.
I have all their albums. I love that this show is using their music.
There are a few occasions, and I've talked about this before on videos, where I hear a song, it's like, oh, that's a Jess song. It's like the moment I heard that, I was like, okay, that's a Jess song. And
Every whole album is a Jess song.
that almost made up for me with the fact that they scrapped the opening theme song from the first 2 seasons. I got unrealistically mad about that. They dropped a couple of notes of it in this episode. It's like, okay, I'm starting to come back.
You were so happy.
I was just like, I was about to come onto this video and be like, this is an outrage. Mike White, you have betrayed yourself. They should have voted you out earlier on Survivor. I was about to go on a real unruly tirade, but you put a little bit in and I'm okay. I've calmed down a little bit. They've given me some rice, some of Lori's beverages. I'm okay.
And some Krungbin.
All right, that's where we are on the White Lotus, season 3, episode 2. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let us know where you think this season is going. Subscribe. Help us get to 70,000 for Jess's birthday, and you can support us further by joining our Patreon. That link is in the description below. We are covering exclusively their Prime Target on Apple TV Plus and The Pit on Max. Thank you. We'll see you here next time.